Hey everybody, Soundcraft UI24 and OBS, right now. Let's go! This is the Mac version, but the PC version will be linked up here and down here, so watch whichever one you need to. Unlike PC, there's no USB audio drivers that you need to install for Mac. Once you connect your mixer to your Mac, it just works, it's recognized, and you're good to go. The very first thing we need to do before we get into OBS is tell our Mac that we want to output all of our audio to our Soundcraft mixer. To do that, you're going to come up to the Apple menu, go to System Settings, then you're going to come down to the Sound tab, and under Output, you want to make sure that you are set to Soundcraft UI24. Now, if you are not intending to send your Mac audio out into the mixer to hear through speakers that are attached to the Soundcraft, then you can choose any other audio device in here to listen to all your playback. But if you want to hear it through speakers attached to the mixer, you need to choose Soundcraft UI24. Something else to note, if this were a PC, we could choose any of the available 32 channels on the USB returns to send audio out to the mixer. Unfortunately, Mac doesn't let you do that. You're restricted to a single set of stereo channels, which is channel 1 and channel 2 on the USB returns. And right now we're going to look at how to set that up in your mixer. So you can see here, I've got a stereo pair of channel strips. Down at the bottom, you can see they're labeled DAW1 and DAW2. So those are the two channels that we are restricted to using on the USB returns into the mixer. Now, I've set it up on channel strip 1 and 2, but you could do it on any channel strip you have available. So I'm going to do it again just so you can see it work. So we're going to choose 10 and 11. So what I'm going to do, bring them both down, and I'm going to click and hold on channel 10. I'm going to choose stereo link. Now these two faders are paired together. One is left panned and one is right panned. Now I'm going to click on channel 10 again. I'm going to choose the edit button, go to patching, and I'm going to click on the USB DAW tab. So this is where we tell it where it can find the signal it's looking for. We're using returns 1 and 2, so we need to tell channel 10 to look at slot 1, come down and click on channel 11, go back to USB DAW tab, tell it to use slot 2. Now if we come out of here, you can see down here at the bottom, channel 10 is DAW1 and channel 11 is DAW2. So it's the same thing that we already did over here. I just wanted you to see that you can put these anywhere. Channel strips do not mean channels. It just means you can take these strips and turn them into any input you want. And now that we've done this, it means any sound coming out of our Mac is going to show up on our DAW1 and 2. For me, it's going to show up in both these places unless I get rid of one of these. So I'm just going to get rid of what I did here. So right now these are set to none and my returns are only on channel 1 and 2. Now that we've assigned signal to these two channel strips, if I bring these up while audio is playing from my Mac, it will then send signal out the main left and right bus. And if I've got speakers attached to the left and right output, I would hear the signal through my speakers. Before we start assigning inputs in OBS, here's something really important you need to understand about how things leave the mixer on the USB cable. You can see the schematic I've got up. The first 10 USB channels are actually for the main outputs of the mixer. So what I mean by that is channel 1 and 2 represent the main left and right mixes. Anything that you have assigned to your main mix is going to go out on USB 1 and 2. So you can send a whole mix if you want to on USB 1 and 2 out to OBS or to anything else you want. The next 8 channels are assigned to the AUX outputs of your mixer. So channel 3 is AUX 1 and channel 10 is AUX 8. Everything in between are the other AUXes. So you can create an AUX mix of all your sources inside the mixer and then use an AUX channel to send that full mix if you don't want to use your left and right out to OBS or to something else. So what that leaves us is the remaining channels are for the physical inputs. So if you have something plugged into physical input number 1, that is going to go out on USB channel 11. This is where things confuse people. This is what you need to understand. Normally, when you're assigning a mixer channel to a DAW or to something like OBS, you would think input channel 1 is going to be channel 1 on the USB sends. That is not what it is with the Soundcraft mixer. They have put all the main mixes at the head of the USB send and then individual channels at the end. So channel 1 will be on channel 11, channel 2 will be on channel 12, etc. down the line. Okay, now let's have a look at OBS. So here I've got my window open and you can see my mixer window over here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to come into settings. We're going to go to the audio tab and let's talk about these global audio devices. Desktop audio and desktop audio 2 are outputs from OBS to your sound card or your speakers, or in this case, our mixer. These are disabled by default and you can see I've got some choices here. You probably won't have any choices unless you've installed a third-party piece of audio software like Black Hole or something similar, which allows you to move audio around inside your computer from app to app or from app to device, etc. It doesn't actually matter for what we're talking about today, but if that's something you need, then you need a program like Black Hole. I'm not covering that today. That can be a different video. We're only going to talk about what's necessary here. So forget about your desktop audio and desktop audio 2 for now. The remaining 4 tabs here are inputs into OBS. So this first one, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to set it to Soundcraft UI24. Let's click OK. And you'll see that we now have a mic aux line added to our audio mixer. There's nothing in it. We don't have anything assigned. So let's click on the ellipses, go to properties, and you can see here, enable down mixing. This is on by default. So what this does is it forces the system to use the first 2 channels on the USB sends, which means we're using our master left and right. If you remember the schematic, we know that USB send 1 and 2 are for the left and right output of the mixer. Now that's probably not what you want here, and there is an issue if you decide to use that, which I will talk about after this. But ideally what you're probably going to want to do is have some more granular control. So if we turn off enable down mixing, this now gives us options to choose our channels. Now it technically goes in stereo pairs, but you're going to see what happens. We know that our first physical input on the mixer actually comes out on USB send 11. So I have a microphone here, which is plugged into the physical input number 1, which means it's going to go out on USB send 11. So if I go to channel 1 here and I change it to 11, you can see I now have signal on the left side. Only the left side because this is a stereo pair here. So there's a couple of different things I could do. I could actually set my channel 2 to be the same thing, and now I've got it on both sides, or I could leave it as 11 and 12, or I could patch it to something else entirely, but that would mean I have 2 different things on the left and right side. The other thing I can do, again, leave it, let's just say for 11 and 12 here, let's click OK. Now I'm actually going to right click in this mixer window and go to Advanced Audio Properties. This opens up another window, and here we can see there's a mono button next to this channel. So if I click this to mono, it now takes what's on the first input, which is 11 and is on the left side, and duplicates it over to the right side. There's a benefit to the way Mac handles this in OBS. And let's just look at this again. Let's go to the ellipses, go to properties. Because we actually have this split into 2 separate choices here, we can, of course, choose 11. We can duplicate that as I talked about, do a separate instrument as I talked about, but you can also come in here and set it to none, which means you're not actually wasting an input channel. Again, if you did this, you would probably want to then click OK, come into your advanced audio properties, and definitely turn this into mono so that you have it on both sides. But it's great. Again, you're not wasting channel 12 and hiding it somewhere where you can't use it. You don't have this kind of option in the PC version of OBS using your Soundcraft. So this is something that's unique to Mac and actually pretty cool. These are all the options you have for taking a single channel and turning it into both the left and right side of this channel in your OBS mixer. Now the obvious question is, Great, we've got this sound coming into OBS, we can see it, but we can't hear it. So what do we do about that? Well, this is where the advanced audio properties window comes into play again. You can see here under audio monitoring, it's currently set to monitor off. If I open this up, change it to monitor and output, you can now see in our Soundcraft window, we're seeing signal on these first two channel strips. And that means if I bring these channel strips up, we're going to hear this come out of my speakers, which are attached to the main left right out. So let's give that a go. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. There we go. We've got signal coming through. If we change this to monitor only and mute output, we can see that we still have that option. So you can choose either one. This choice would only really matter or be an issue if you also had an output device here and you didn't want your monitoring to also go to the output. You wouldn't choose monitor and output in that case. You would choose monitor only. But because we don't have that output from OBS enabled here, it doesn't apply. Just keep that in mind. If you do have something set here, you're probably going to want to do monitor only unless you want your sound to go both to your monitor and the assigned output. So now you might be asking a question, great, we got signal coming in, we can hear it, but what if I only want this input to be part of a specific scene and not just be available and on all the time? Well, you can do that too. So what you can do is come over here to your scenes and sources, and under sources, you can right click or click on the plus sign, go to add audio input capture, name it whatever you want, let's call it microphone. And then we get the same options we had when we added something through the settings tab. I can open this device, I can choose Soundcraft UI24, down mixing is on by default, but let's turn it off. And now I have the same choices I had in the other window. Same things apply, it works the same way. This is just a different way to get it in and have it only as a specific scene source choice that can change as you move through your OBS layout or your live stream. I just want to clarify quickly what I said about this down mixing button. By default, this is what it is when you turn it on. But if you actually open this up and change the channels, it won't default to 1 and 2. Let's say you change this to 10. If I turn on down mixing, it actually then forces it to be 10 and 11. So it'll force a stereo pair based on the first choice you make. So that does give you some other options as well for sending signal to your OBS. It's just good to know that this is what it does. But obviously the thing that makes the most sense is to open up down mixing and have your own choices readily visible and available for you. All right, now a real quick jump back to something I mentioned just a minute ago, and that's using your main left right to send a full mix from your mixer into OBS. Can you do that? Yes, you can. A couple of different ways. So let's just get rid of this source here so we don't confuse ourselves. What you can do is you can come into your input that you have, go to properties, and you could set this to 1, and you could set this to 2. So now that we're using input 1 and 2, if we remember our schematic, that is the main left and right output from the mixer on the USB sends. Okay, so we know we can do that. Is it wise to do this? This is where a problem can occur. Because you are sending your full mix out of your main left right, anything you bring up here is going to go out the main left and right, go into OBS. Not a problem on its own. But remember, if we go into advanced audio properties and we change this to monitor our source, anything coming in here through monitoring will now jump back out to the mixer and show up here on our returns from OBS. So what you could do is inadvertently create a loop that gives you feedback, phasing, major problems. We're going to do this right now so you can see it happen and understand why you need to be very careful if you're going to use a full mix through your main left-right output. Okay, we're going to start by pulling down these first two faders, and you're going to see that I've got signal here now on fader 3. Now, what I did was I actually patched my microphone a different way. I patched it to this channel strip. So I went to this channel strip, edit, local inputs and set it to input 1, which is where I have this microphone, physical input 1. So now if I raise this fader, we're going to hear it in the speakers. Let's do a test. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. There, sounds good, nice and clean. So here's where we can run into an issue. Now that I'm sending this out through the main left and right, you can hear it in the speakers, but we're also seeing it show up here because we set our OBS channel to look at 1 and 2. So what happens if we change this to either monitor only or monitor and output? Well, you can see already there's signal coming back here. And if we want to hear something that's happening in OBS, we would need to bring these two faders up. When we do that, they're going to go out the main left right into OBS and then come right back out the monitor into itself. So let's watch that happen. We're listening to the microphone. Now we're sending the microphone to OBS, and now we're monitoring the output of OBS right here. So when I bring these up, we're going to get feedback, phasing, delays, decays. It's going to be awful. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. So there you go. Can you send your left-right mix out to OBS? Yes, you absolutely can. Just please be mindful of your monitoring situation in OBS, because you can very quickly and very easily create a feedback loop for yourself. And as we all know, feedback loops, bad. But James, you say, what if I want to send a full mix and I also want to be able to monitor? Is there another way to do that? Yes, there is. So remember from our schematic, USB send 1 and 2 are for the main left and right. But then the next 7 outputs are for our auxiliary outs from the mixer. So if we come into our aux sends and we start sending signal to one of our auxes, in this case aux 1, we now have a full mix going out of the aux, and if our aux master fader for that aux 1 is up, it's now sending out through the physical output as well as on the USB send number 3. So what we could do is come over to OBS, go into these properties, and we could change this to input 3. Again, if we wanted to do the same thing but have it stereo, we could either set this to 3 as well, or we could set it to none and then go into our advanced audio properties and make it mono so that it shows up on both sides. So let's just have a look and see if this is sending signal properly. Check, check 1 2, check 1 2. This is going out the mains, but is it going out of our aux? There's our aux. Let's send a little bit more signal. This is going out. This is set to 3. So you'll notice we're not actually seeing signal here, even though our aux 1 has signal going to it. Even though our aux master is up, this is set to pre, so technically this doesn't even have to be up because we can still see signal going to our aux. So why aren't we seeing this here in OBS? This is something I've noticed on Mac's version of OBS. When I change these channel inputs frequently, sometimes it actually freezes the input and I need to restart. So that's worth noting. I'm going to restart this, but let's just look quickly. This is set to mono. This is set to monitor only. So let's turn it to monitor off for now. Close this window when it catches up. Let's go back into setting or into properties for this. Make sure it is set to channel 3. It is. So now I'm going to restart OBS. Check 1 2, and you can see now that it's restarted, we actually have signal here. Is it coming from our aux? Well, let's find out. Go back to the aux send, turn this down, and there goes the signal. It's gone. So if you do want to send a full mix to OBS without using your main left and right, you can create a mix of all your sources inside one of your auxes or 2 of your auxes if you want it to be stereo. We could send the same thing to aux 1 and to aux 2, and then we could change this input to have input 4 as the right side. So this is aux 1 and this is aux 2. Let's go OK, go back into our advanced audio properties, turn mono off, and you can see we still have both sides. Let's just do a quick little demonstration. Aux 1, if we turn this down, we'll lose the left side. Check, 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 check. There you go. Back up. Go to aux 2. turn this down and we lose the right side. So we know that that's working. That gives us a proper stereo send of a full mix to OBS. So because we've sent our full mix using an aux to OBS, we can now also monitor anything we want in OBS, because when it comes back to our 2 monitoring channels in the mixer, those will not be going out to our aux unless you have specifically chosen to do that, in which case please watch out for that feedback loop. So there you have it, friends. Now you know how to take all the audio happening inside your Soundcraft mixer, send it USB to OBS, and then if you want to hear things happening in OBS, come back to the mixer and through the speakers attached to your main left, right, you know how to do that too. I hope this video was interesting, entertaining, educational. If it was any of those 3 things, please like, please share, and please subscribe. You can also check us out on Patreon, or you can join the channel down below, or even do a super thanks down below. Thanks to everybody who's already subscribed or contributed, and until we see you next time, thanks for watching here on QuickEZ. Bye everybody.